Okay, so I'm going to show you some of the noise machines that I've made in the past, what has worked, what hasn't, and let's get right into it. So this noise machine is based on a radio circuit board. Somewhere in here there is a transistor that will generate white noise, so that's what I was after, and it takes a bit of finagling to actually separate such a thing and have it on its own board. I cut the antennas circuit all the way off, but it would still pick up things sometimes. The whole board, something blew one day, but I'd used this for like maybe 6 months as a noise machine last year. And so on the top, this is the volume switch. This is a tuner between AM and FM, and I think the AM had a higher treble, or maybe it was the FM that had a higher treble, but anyway, I usually used the one that had less of a treble effect. And then this is to tune the radio, just in case you're picking something up, you could kind of, tune it back to something that wasn't picking up a station or something. And then the DC power out on the back. This worked for a while, has 2 speakers, and the board powered the speakers pretty well. I don't know if I really needed 2, but it worked for what it was. But I would not recommend trying to do that unless you can make a board with a white noise generator and you can somehow tune it to not be so trebly. So, next one. Now this noise machine I made maybe a few months ago. I've been using it for about a month now. The noise making component in this noise machine was a computer fan, and I put the computer back together that the fan was from, so I had to take the fan out. The concept behind it, the fan is upright inside in the middle, and power out was here. I had a piece of wire that went over the top of this and down into the base of it, so it would, and this is on nails, and it can slide up and down, so it would make different sounds as you adjusted this. The problem was I ended up getting at certain openings, and kind of generally at any opening, I would get kind of a vague whistling noise, which I kind of can conceptualize as like a train whistle. You're passing air through a tiny slot, it's gonna make a noise. So that's just kind of part of the theory involved in sound conditioning and fan air noises. There was a kind of prominent tone in it, which I didn't like. So I ended up just scrapping the top of the thing and just popping open the top for a while. I just had the top kind of loose. The air was blowing around inside it and then escaping from the top, and that made, out of like a little crack around here, that kind of made a better, more diffused noise. And now, the noise machine that I used last night, which I'm gonna work on now, the fan that I used in my other noise machine was way smaller than this. It was about maybe 3x3, whereas this is maybe 5.5 by 5.5, maybe 6, I can't really tell. It's just kind of taped into the back of a old cigar box. I feel like cardboard's not the best. I'd rather it be wood. And for the screen, this is the bottom of a pie tin. The concept here being that you're passing air through a type of grated screen that diffuses the air instead of pushing it through like one slot. What I did notice is that the fan is backwards, and since this fan turns this way, it ended up sucking air through this and then blowing out just kind of through unintended places through the back. We can see what it sounds like right now. You can kind of get a sense of what I'm aiming for with this sound. There's parts of it that I don't like, how there's kind of a whine to the computer fan, which is something I've come across a lot, and what I've realized is that it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to perceive it all the time when you're using the noise machine, because it's just, you get used to it a little bit. But for the most part, this is pretty close to what I'm trying to accomplish. And really, the theory behind it is just take a fan and put that fan into an environment where it can drive air through something. Or I think about heating systems where they have long tubes, and air is passing around bends, through splits, and eventually through a grate. That's really what I'm trying to mimic, because as a kid I had the heating system in my parents' house was really calming. I'm always trying to kind of replicate that because it was so soothing and so bassy, but that's because it was a massive machine pushing air through tons of feet of large pipe and through a bunch of vents, and there's interconnectedness to it. It's a tough thing to replicate in a small little thing. Here's an interesting experiment. So you can hear the sound difference when I plug this in when it's open like this, as opposed to when I cup it. There's a certain difference that happens. That's what I was really trying to do with this concept of taking it from something that I could open and close and kind of tune to my liking, but there can't be such a harsh opening. I think it has to be more of like a vague opening, or a different shaped opening than a slot. I think in these types of instances, I don't want to tone. I don't want to hear the fan per se, which is the danger of closing it, because then the air sound doesn't get as much play. And if that motor sound is equal to the air sound without anything, and you diminish the air sound, then the motor sound is going to, on those levels, it's going to bump up more than it's not going to get covered as well. But for the most part, we're going to see what we can do with this. Alright, so here is a bit of a final thing. Fan in it. I mean, obviously this is a little bit more focused on aesthetics than complete and utter safety and complete knowing that nothing will ever happen. So if you do decide to screw around with how much power you're putting into a fan, which is the thing, if it's going, this fan is 12 volts, I think I'm running it at 9 volts. I mean, obviously if you max out a fan power, that's not great. I wouldn't go over the recommended voltage or the voltage requirement. But if you're underpowering it, maybe just test it out first, see that it's good, see that your power, the DC adapter box isn't overheating or anything. The diffuser plate is in this position, and it's kind of vibrating on these. They're slightly springy, and then beyond that, there's a solid ring around here that ends and kind of makes a slight cupping type thing, and then capped off by fabric. But the fan, I switched it around, and it is blowing outwards now instead of into the box. And so we can see what it sounds like. Close it with this little weird clasp thing that I just kind of threw together. Kind of light, calming type thing. Not too much going on, which is good. You don't want to be noticing things. It is a little bit high-pitched, but not too bad. And it does stand up on a flat surface without falling over, and you can put it this way, you can put it that way, I don't know. Yeah, there's a little bit of air coming out of the crevices in the back that I'm noticing, but I don't know. Not too much being but a lot of noise being generated, not a lot of wind, so that's good. You know, if I think of other points to these concepts I can make another video if I'm making a different one, but for the most part this is kind of the next step in what I'm coming up with. I'm happy with this. Very cool. If you want to build your own, build your own. Just be careful and be smart about your power stuff. Probably use good material like wood or something that isn't so flammable as these types of things. And share with me if you make anything, and I hope this somewhat lightens something within you.